Hey, what's word players? Virtua Fighter is a fighting game franchise that has a ton of likable characters that are full of personality. But you wouldn't be able to gather that if you just played the games.
That's Mariner's power!
While AM2 and Sega put all their time and energy into making sure that the 3D gameplay could be the best they could possibly be, they kinda left out any semblance of characterization through in-game cinematics, character endings, even something like a character bio. Anything to make it so that players can get attached to these characters. Unlike other fighting games where you have a story mode so that you can understand your character's motivations for why they're fighting, you don't get that in Virtua Fighter. Even arcade mode just drops you straight into the fight. No explanation whatsoever. As such, for a lot of people that aren't in the know, they just see these characters in Virtua Fighter as avatars that say cheesy one-liners.
Get away!
But that could possibly change with the upcoming new Virtua Fighter coming out. At the time of making this, we have no clue what the release date for when the new Virtua Fighter will come out, but I figure what I want to do in the meantime is I'd like to cover the story behind one of my mains in the series, that being Pai Chan, and to some extent her father Lao Chan because he's very closely connected to her story. So grab some snacks, save me a few, kick back, and let's find out what's the word on Pai Chan. Since Virtua Fighter stories up to this point have been told through the instruction manuals, I took the time to look at both the English and Japanese instruction manuals just so I can make sure to get the complete picture. With any differences between the Japanese and English info, I will mainly be sticking with the Japanese info when possible. Pai debuted in Virtua Fighter, released in arcades in October 1993, and was designed by Seiichi Ishii. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. Before I go any further, I want to give a huge shout out and major thanks to Korimaru, who showed me this article that I will be showing in just a second here. If you haven't already, toss a subscription this way, especially if you're a massive Sega fan. Korimaru, once again, thank you. According to an interview with Seiichi-san, Pai's name is actually derived from the Dragon Ball character Tao Pai Pai, or Mercenary Pai, and also Lao's design is inspired by the same character, and Lao kinda sounds like Tao. Pai's likeness was inspired by a woman from a tea commercial that Seiichi-san watched before. It is unknown what that commercial was, however. Pai Chan was born on May 17th, 1975, to her parents, Lao Chan, and her mother, who, as far as I'm aware, was unnamed. Her father, Lao, was an accomplished professional chef who owned a successful restaurant. He is also trained in the martial arts at the Xi'an Martial Arts School, going on to become an instructor because of his remarkable talent. Dude, I'm telling you, this guy would be as if Gordon Ramsay also happened to be a kung fu master. Lao would go on to train his only daughter, Pai Chan, at an early age in the style of Inseiken, in the hopes that she would be able to be his successor. Lao was a perfectionist, so much of a perfectionist that he got lost in the delicious sauce that made his restaurant so famous, by focusing so much of his time and energy into perfecting his martial arts that it put a strain on his relationship with his family. Pai was seen as nothing more than a way for his legacy to live on, and as he focused more and more time to train, he spent less and less time at the restaurant, forcing his wife to overwork herself to support the family. Unfortunately, the stress would catch up to her, and she would die at an early age, leaving a young Pai behind. Pai was devastated. She would hate her father for putting his love of martial arts above her and her mom, and she blamed him for her mom's death. Seemingly, at least in a young Pai's eyes, he didn't seem too fazed by his wife's death, as he would just continue on to train as if nothing happened. Or maybe this was just his way of grieving. Who knows? What we do know is that it was over between them. Pai had run away from home. Fast forward to 5 years later, and Pai became an action movie star. Kind of a clever way to put her martial arts skills to use in some way. Kind of makes me wonder if she and Fei Long would ever star in an action movie together. Hey, that would probably be a movie I would be willing to see in theaters for once. Pai's looks, love for dancing, and powerful kung fu make her a beloved actress in the film industry. At the age of 18, she gets wind that her father is entering in the World Fighting Tournament held by Judgment 6, or J6 for short. Before I go any further, I gotta say, J6, they could probably have a whole thing dedicated just to them because they've done some pretty messed up stuff. We're talking murders, kidnappings, brainwashings, evil experimentations, and probably a whole lot more that we don't know about. But since they're not directly connected to Pai and Lao's story, we won't cover them here. Okay, well, I guess there is one connection where J6 attacked Pai while filming one of her movies, but you know where this detail was found? In a Virtua Fighter pachinko machine. Sega, please, why is there vital lore locked behind a pachinko machine? Anyway, Pai hears that Lao is entering this tournament, and so she decides to enter, for no other reason than
revenge!
She wants to make him pay for neglecting her and her mom. And what better way to do that than to use the martial arts skills that he taught her to defeat him in the tournament. So Pai enters the first World Fighting Tournament alongside Akira Yuki, Jackie and Sarah Bryant, Kage Maru, Wolf Hawkfield, Jeffrey McWild, and of course Lao Chan. And there's also a mysterious fighter called Duro. She fought hard through the tournament until she made it to her father. Despite her best efforts, she was defeated by Lao and eliminated. Not only that, but it seemed like all the training that Lao did paid off greatly as he was able to win the World Fighting Tournament and become its first champion. Seeing that she was the youngest fighter out of everyone there, Pai knew that she lacked the experience needed to win. So she sought to train even harder to improve her skills. A year later, the second World Fighting Tournament was announced, which debuted in Virtua Fighter 2 in 1994. As it turns out, Lao was also competing in this one despite being the previous year's champion. As we know, he's a perfectionist, and even though he did win, it wasn't to his satisfaction. He wants a serious fight. So Lao himself was also on the 1-year grind to really train himself and prove himself in this next tournament. Pai seized this opportunity as a second chance to get back at her father. At 19 years old, she enters the second World Fighting Tournament, and we see ourselves in a familiar place. She faces Lao once again, and also in similar fashion, he defeats her. But a subtle change has happened. Whereas after her first loss, she had a burning desire for revenge to get back at him. This time, she was left wondering, what was it that Lao was searching with his fists? What could be so important that he would neglect his own family? While she would not get the answers to these questions, Pai would at least get a small win by the fact that Akira Yuki defeats Lao Chan, crowning him the new champion of the World Fighting Tournament. After this, Pai went back to Hong Kong and continued her career of being an action movie star. A year and a few months later, Pai receives an invitation that a new World Fighting Tournament is underway, which debuted in Virtua Fighter 3, released in 1996. And surprise, surprise, Lao is competing in it as well. You might see where this is going. Pai promises that this is the moment where she can finally get her revenge on her father. She faces him in the tournament, and he defeats her yet again. I just want my goat to catch a W for once.
You can't keep getting away with this!
But even though she lost, it wasn't all bad. Her training has paid off, as it wasn't completely one-sided as it had been before. Her skill was getting closer to Lao's level. That at least put her in high spirits as she made the flight back to Hong Kong to finish filming her action movies and continue her training. As for Lao, he fought hard, but he lost the championship title to the coolest ninja out there, Kage Maru.
No.
To make matters worse, he found out that he also has a rare, incurable terminal illness. He's concerned because he hasn't found anyone to pass on his Tiger Swallow Fist style, aka Quinken. Priorities, am I right? Pai hears about his search for a successor, and she also finds out about his illness. Despite the clock ticking, he still enters the 4th World Fighting Tournament in the hopes to find a student. After learning that he is continuing to fight despite his condition, Pai enters the tournament so that she can once again prove that she is stronger than her father. Now, in this tournament, it's not recorded who it was that defeated and eliminated her, but what we do know is that it was not Lao this time. The streak is broken. But while looking for her father, she caught him and monk assassin Lei Fei in a battle. Lei Fei was sent to kill Lao, but he wanted to learn the secrets of Koenken first. He offered himself to be Lao's student. However, he suddenly attacked Lao because he was impatient, and saw this as a way to learn the technique faster. I'll admit, this part was a little fuzzy to me. If he wants to learn the technique for himself before killing Lao, well, why kill him before learning the technique? I mean, he was sent to kill him, but he wants to learn the technique before killing him? I don't know, maybe I'm missing something here. Lao fell in battle. Lei Fei was coming in for the final killing blow when suddenly Pai Chan jumped in and stopped him. She and Lei Fei engaged in battle and she managed to defeat him, saving her father, the man that she once hated. The tides have changed. What started as a tale of revenge had now become a bonding moment between father and daughter. But unfortunately, Lao once again disappeared from Pai's life. But you do get the sense that the rift between him and her may have started to close, at least just a little bit. Now, Lao at this point, he is painfully aware that his time is running out. His hair is all turned gray. He's starting to cough a lot more. Physically, he's not looking the best right now. But, ever the warrior that he is, when he received an invitation to the 5th World Fighting Tournament, he accepted. Meanwhile, Pai has come to accept and respect her father's determination. I mean, even after losing his wife, abandoning the only living family member he has left, and battling a terminal illness that could take him at any moment, he still chooses to fight. Not knowing how much time he has left, Pai enters the 5th World Fighting Tournament so that no matter what, she can at least see her father's battles to the very end. Will Lao manage to get a second win at the World Fighting Tournament? Will Pai be able to surpass her father and maybe even win the World Fighting Tournament herself? Will she and Lei Fei cross paths once more? Will Lao live long enough to be in the next Virtua Fighter? Only time will tell once we get that new game. Pai is one of my favorite characters in Virtua Fighter. She has a fiery personality, and her playstyle, in my opinion, is very flexible because you can play her as Rushdown, or you can play her as more defensively since she has a lot of counter moves. Her signature move is, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, otherwise it is known as PPPK. She can also do PPP down K to sweep her opponent's legs. One of Pai's signature lines is, which translates as, your kung fu is not good enough. Pai's look has, for the most part, stayed the same throughout the years, maybe some small changes, but pretty consistent. One memorable detail is that she wears this hat that in the first 3 games, you could actually knock it off her head when you knock her down. It's not really a thing in the newer games, and honestly, it's not really that important of a detail, but I always thought it was a nice touch, and I'm kind of hoping that they bring that back in the new Virtua Fighter. Just for the heck of it, here are Pai and her sages throughout the Virtua Fighter series. There's also a Virtua Fighter anime that came out in 1996 that follows the plots of Virtua Fighter 1 and 2, roughly. Pai is depicted as honestly kind of bratty, which is a little bit different than the headcanon that I formed just from reading the instruction manuals. It's not a bad characterization. It is interesting that the anime has her and Akira be love interests. Maybe they're friends in the games, I don't know. But yeah, that's a thing in the anime. Pai has also appeared in all the Virtua Fighter spin-offs and made a few cameo appearances. She's appeared in Fighters Megamix, yes, the game where you can play as a fighting car. There's also Virtua Fighter Kids, where you can play as a younger version of her in the Virtua Fighter characters.
In Shenmue, there are various gachapons, including one for Virtua Fighter. If you're lucky, you can score yourself a Pai toy.
This is cool.
She's also made an appearance in Virtual Quest. I do still plan to talk about Virtual Quest at some point. Pai was also in Project Cross Zone with Akira and in the sequel Project Cross Zone 2. Pai was also one of the Virtua Fighter guest characters in Dead or Alive 5. Pai also appeared in Dengeki Buko Fighting Climax. She also made an appearance in Sega Heroes. And when the King of Fighters had a Virtua Fighter collaboration, yep, Pai was in that as well. I don't know if the Grand Blue Fantasy mobile game is still doing collaborations, but if they are, Virtua Fighter's right there. I think that pretty much covers all the stuff surrounding Pai Chan that I could think of anyway. There's probably a lot more stuff out there that I missed. If there is, let me know. Also, let me know how you feel about Pai, Lao, or any of the Virtua Fighter characters. I'm curious to hear what you think. If you're looking for a non-denominational church, down in the description below will be a link to a church locator. Also down there you'll find 2 Discords, one for my Discord and another for a Christian fighting game community Discord. Feel free to join those if you would like. I'm not sure if I'd want to do other characters or if I'll just leave it as Pai for now. I'll leave that door open for now. We'll see. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Till next time. Peace.